see really very little movement on the day. And we had initial jobless claims along with some other data, existing home sales data, that were really solid yesterday. Quite interesting that Bernanke, comments and doesn't do any tapering the day before. We get really strong data. So obviously you saw a little bit of a back off in some of the gold price, some of the gold shares. Gold shares actually really got crushed in the States last night. I find that really interesting. So I think that maybe is a bit of a temporary blip there for markets, especially in the precious metal and resources space, because at the end of the day, the tapering is still coming. It's just only coming a few months down the line. So I think that's really important to notice going forward. Asia was a bit of a sideways market as well. Very little action over there, and we did have Australia that pulled back a little bit. But the real outperformers of the last day and a half have been the emerging market complex, which we really saw a huge bounce in emerging market currencies as yields dropped in the States. They also dropped in those emerging markets, and really got a nice upward boost out of some of those markets. We had Hong Kong, China, and South Korea that were shut today for holidays, but so it was just a really slow day overall in Asia. We have a bunch of stocks going ex-div today. Don't forget this today, guys. We've got all mutual, GRFs, IPLs, SMTs, GNDs, and ARIs. So a couple big ones coming out of Imperial and African Rainbow. So watch those closely on the open today. Don't screw that up. Very little on market data today. We had Indian RBI repurchase rate, which was actually raised. The expectation was for them to keep it the same. They raised it by a quarter point. And then we've got the consumer confidence out of the Eurozone a little bit later. All right, let's jump into the maps. Today we really have a handful of about 50 charts that we could probably show right now, breaking to new highs. But I'll just kind of maybe bounce around to a couple of the different sectors and especially if maybe focus on a couple of the ones that have really been making new highs across the board. That's obviously the banking sector. You can see here we've been testing new highs for the last few sessions on FirstRand there. You can see we hadn't really been able to close above what was a new high. We did get a new closing high, but we hadn't closed above all-time highs until yesterday. Yesterday we really got that breakout. Nice big move there out of FirstRand. Standard Bank, let's have a quick look at Standard Bank. Standard Bank's making all-time highs here on a closing basis. I still don't think we hit an all-time high on an intraday basis. I think we were higher here. Oh no, that says 2089. Let me go back here. Back all the way to. It looks like it maybe was an all-time high, but definitely an all-time closing high out of Standard Bank. I think this is only the second or third time it's ever closed over 120, and this time actually significantly. So, if we look at this chart, I wouldn't necessarily say it's completely broken out here. I would look for it to break out of this slightly upward sloping resistance. But I mean, bottom line is, if we go back even further than that, we can look at what's really a long-term a monster flag pattern for really long term here. That's looking at a 10-year chart on Standard Bank, and you can see going all the way back to 2007 we started to test this 120 level when the ICBC came in and bought a 20% stake. This is the fourth year that we've tested 120, so I think we're getting pretty close to finally making the breakthrough. You got to realize how big this level is. That's why I think this is the one to really focus on. A lot of the other ones have, they've reached these levels, and these levels are a lot higher than they've been, so probably a little bit more due for a pullback. This one hasn't really come from so far below, so I think a break above 120, we'll probably definitely see 130 or so in the near term on Standard Bank in my mind. All right, Nedbank also, obviously we had the breakout there, but just kind of sticking with the theme, we've had a huge breakout here in Nedbank, and it's difficult to try to trade and stop these things. They can continue to go for quite a long time, so be very careful on the short side of these stocks that are making all-time highs. All right, let's show Amplatz here. Amplatz made a little bit of a consolidation pattern. You can see kind of around this 430 level. It touched up at 430 about 4 or 5 times over a few days, over about a month period. You can see they're kind of really making a bit of a flag and breaking out above this consolidation yesterday. We had a huge breakout, obviously. I think that's actually done what the target would be from the breakout here. So, it may end up being a little bit of a one-day wonder, and we see a pullback at least to this consolidation. But this one also, I think, is probably a lot of shorts out there that have really just got their faces ripped off in a squeeze yesterday. All right, I'm gonna pull this forward a little bit in CFR. CFR made a nice breakout yesterday out of this flag pattern. This one has really just been one that you have to buy on pullbacks. If you back out a little bit, every time it's made a flag, it's really made a nice move higher. There's a flag that we broke out from there. You can see there's a flag that we broke out from there. Call it there. There's several patterns. You can look at so many of these. I know these look kind of mini, but at the time, these are the setups that we like to play off of. I think we could this is very likely the same sort of setup here. So broken out nicely yesterday. The target here, I think, would be at least to recent highs, possibly even new highs on CFR. All right, and then the last one I want to show here is GRT. Growth point, we really broke out of a bit of a longer term. Sorry, I just drew that quite badly. We broke out of a longer term downtrend here, and quite a vicious downtrend. So, obviously this has been helped by rates coming a little bit lower. I think that we've kind of put in the bottom of these interest rate sensitive stocks for the time being. These and the retailers, they really feel like they've kind of hit the bottom of that sort of little range. All right, and then last thing here, we've got a question from Ricky Tetz asking for our views on where you think the U.S. dollar ZAR is heading in the next couple weeks. We'll just have a quick look at this chart. You can see here, we talked about this yesterday. The main level here really is 980, which we obviously ripped through yesterday and quite viciously. It's a little bit disappointing that we couldn't hold recent closing lows as of yesterday. If you pull this forward, you can see here how we did close above or below, whichever currency you're looking at here. But we did bounce above what was a previous highs in the rand. So that's a little bit disappointing, but I think nonetheless, we've broke through this 980 level. I think moving out of this sort of the height of this channel, I think we're at least going to come down here and test some sort of resistance around 9 Rand 30 in the near term. So I think there is more upside left for the Rand. I don't see any reason why this level won't be tested. And I also think that you can look at trendline support, which really comes in nicely, and is that same level around 930. Also, you've got the 200-day moving average, which is right down there. So that's kind of what I'll be looking for. Maybe 930, 935, somewhere in there for us to get a little bit of a test on the Rand over the next month or two. That's it for today, guys. Thanks a lot.